Hey everyone, it's Alex, and welcome to the Marvel Snap Decks of the Week, the weekly series where I show you the top 11 best decks in Marvel Snap. And this week, we're a little later than usual. And as I mentioned in the prior week, as I was traveling to PAX to and from, and I actually just got home, and I figured, you know what, let's get the video out there, and so that we can focus on the Snapchat tonight and tomorrow, get that out to you guys as well. It's going to be a big one, all the new cards being previewed and etc., which I'm sure is going to impact the meta, which is going to be something that you're going to want to keep tabs on because we've actually had quite a meta shakeup considering the most recent OTA as well. So as always, we're getting started with our budget Destroy deck. If you're looking for a budget option in Marvel Snap right now, Destroy continues to be an excellent option. This Deadpool based deck is running a 55% win rate, 0.35 cube rate. That's not just quite enough to reach the actual legitimate top 10. The win rate's a little on the weak side, although the cube rate is particularly strong. But honestly, it's relatively inexpensive. Yes, you do have X23, of course, in this deck, but overall, well, you do have Agony too. But if you don't have Agony, you can replace Agony with Hulkbuster as a relatively straightforward, just like swap-a-rooney. But yeah, X23 represents the only Series 4 card there. But ultimately, Budget Destroy, a very good option if you're looking to not break the bank in Marvel Snap, which is a little more difficult than it should be. And the next deck we're talking about today is going to be the 55% win rate Mr. Negative deck. Now, this Mr. Negative deck is running the highest cube rate in this week's roundup, running a 0.61%. And it's been a very consistent deck. And this is one of those things where, like, yes, we know that people use negative to rank up through infinite and stuff like that. But once they hit infinite, they often kind of just let go of negative, right? And it's showcasing that it's still a very strong list. Now, I think at like high infinite, you're unlikely to be scamming people cubes, especially at 0.61 cube rate, right? And again, we're using untapped based statistics. And, you know, sometimes we don't have the largest sample sizes to work with, especially after a recent OTA. But, like, if someone snaps on you when they're playing Psylocke or Ravonna, like, you know negative's coming. And if you don't think you can compete with negative, if you don't have the tools, like, you leave. Don't wait to see the negative fall in that next turn, right? And you sure as heck don't stay in 6 or 7 turn games with the Jane Foster and Mr. Negative on the board, right? So, anyways, Mr. Negative is an excellent option if you're looking to kind of steal some cubes and get some games in. It continues to be fantastic, and it is the primary home of Esme, who, you know, was a season pass card that has ultimately not found the meta penetration that perhaps some people were hoping for when that card was first introduced. Coming to number 9, we do have a mainstay in the meta, and that's Toxic Ajax, running a 56% win rate and a 0.30 cube rate. Now, what's interesting about this particular list is, like, the Budget Destroy deck is actually outperforming this from a cube rate perspective, although the win rate is a little on the lower side. But it goes to show you just how good some of these budget-based decks actually can be, despite the fact that they don't always crack top 10 lists and roundups. But this one here is actually unironically using Quicksilver and Domino. It's not even the last time we're going to see this combination. The fact that Domino recently got buffed, not like the most recent OTA, but did recently get buffed, is now seeing the opportunity for people to use Quicksilver, Domino, and Wiccan together to generate these very interesting decks, and Speed is actually making a comeback here. And so, yes, we are unironically running Domino alongside Quicksilver in this particular list. Again, if you don't have something like Speed, you do have a number of different options that you can consider subbing out in more traditional Ajax style decks. But it is more expensive, of course, this particular list, because you do have the Anti-Venom, you have the Malekith as well. So it's not necessarily a budget-oriented deck, but still a solid one if you're interested in playing some Toxic. Going to number 9, we do have the buff deck of the week, and this has been a very interesting archetype. And there's been a couple things that I want to kind of comment on the fantastic buff style deck. First of all, you love to see cards like Okoye seen play, and every time I've played this deck, I've been continuously surprised by the power output of cards. Obviously, like Brood's an obvious card, but like Mr. Sinister has been an absolute standout. He doesn't feel quite as good now, especially considering the 3-costed slot for Mr. Fantastic, because essentially you never played Mr. Sinister on 2. You only do that in Cerebro 2, right? So you hold the Mr. Sinister and hope to get it buffed up with the Gwenpools, with the Galactus, with the Mr. Fantastics. So the deck feels significantly weaker than it did in its prime, because you would usually just play Mr. Fantastic on turn 2 and perhaps even give some juice to the Mr. Sinister, whether it's making it 1 or free costed, or of course giving it that extra power. This deck still runs the Killmonger, Fenris, and Gladiator combination here, which is still good. I mean, I think Fenris is probably going to start sliding out of some decks here. It's a good card. I still think it's good. However, it has definitely been negatively impacted, and that Cannonball package has been significantly nerfed, considering the changes to the OTA. Will Fenris land on his feet? It's hard to say. You still are able to curve into Fenris into a couple of things, including Mercury and Cannonball, like, let's be honest. But Fenris did see a very significant nerf, and I'm glad they didn't touch Negasonic for what it's worth. But yeah, so these decks are kind of good options if you're looking to get started, and let's talk about the next ones. Well, that was one of the worst segues I've ever done, but I'm only on an hour and a half of sleep, so forgive me. I literally just got off the plane and drove home. But we have Galactus, 56%, running a 0.44 cube rate, very strong stats overall. And this version of Galactus can do a number of different things. Now, you guys will know, anybody who's been watching my stream, I've been unironically playing quite a bit of Galactus. Something that's missing from this deck, which I tend to try to use, especially with Galactus, is going to be Symbiote Spider-Man. Like, I understand what this deck's going for, but like Symbiote Spider-Man into Nimrod actually puts up more power than something like a Shuri, especially when you get those destroy procs, you're getting more power on the Nimrod and stuff like that. Galactus and Symbiote Spider-Man also synergize particularly well. So when I look at this deck, I wonder myself, I'm like, would I cut Green Goblin? Would I cut Hobgoblin? Those are the two I'd probably go after for something like a Symbiote Spider-Man. That's just my opinion. I want to report on what's like statistically doing well, and like what people are playing in the meta, right? What we're getting on Untapped. But that's one of the changes I would make. I would kind of lean towards getting Symbiote Spider-Man in a deck like this if you can. But long story short, this particular list still running a 56% win rate and a 0.44 cube rate, which is particularly good. Going to number 6 here, we have Agatha Hela. We actually introduced it last week here, and it's a very fascinating deck, and it's doing phenomenally well. And one of the things that, like, when I was testing this deck, and it's a little, people know it's coming. Like, once you get rid of Hela, a lot of people retreat. It's getting rid of Agatha that's going to cause people to want to retreat, especially if you got the Black Knight on 1, Redshift on 2, Agatha's gone, and then all of a sudden you get a massive enemy blade that you're able to pull with something like an Eson, right? A very fascinating deck, and it also leans into the Hela side too, which is kind of fascinating with the Corvus Glaive, the Gambit, and of course you have the Ghost Rider as well. So like, I really do like what this deck's doing. It's trying to really lean heavy into the discard archetype and trying to kind of reinvigorate Hela as a whole. I'm looking for a Morgan Le Fay deck. I think I want to start cooking some Morgan Le Fay. Like, I feel like that's kind of the archetype of discard that's still kind of missing. I don't want to say I'm happy to see Hela coming back, let's be honest with you, but it is interesting to see some good cooking going on, and Agatha and Redshift have been a breath of fresh air in the meta ever since Redshift was introduced. That's going to take us to number 5, and that's Astral Ongoing. This deck is running a 58% win rate and a 0.40 cube rate, which is pretty good. One thing I will mention here is that you are still running the Cannonball Mercury combination despite the nerf, and this is post OT stats. So like, yeah, they're still doing good. They still trade lanes effectively. However, what's really fascinating here is that it's the astral projection side, which you can obviously use to get that Cannonball interaction. You can use it to hit the spectrum and stuff like that. Overall, like, this deck is fascinating, but it had a relatively low play rate. I wanted to include it because I know that it was like I like to include different archetypes in the top 10 if I can. And in this given circumstance, this is a good example of the top performing ongoing shell for the most part. Despite the fact that that's astral projection, which is a card that perhaps like you kind of punted on, which I understand, right? This is the first deck where astral projection feels like an actual legitimate fun play to make, where you can kind of sneak out those spectrum interactions and play some other stuff at the same time. But long story short, Astral Ongoing running a 58% win rate comes in at number 5. When we go to number 4, we do get Misery. Now, Misery has been remarkably good, and this deck is a great example of that. Let's not forget, Misery was actually buffed to a 4/9. It's running a 58% win rate and a 0.50 cube rate, which is phenomenal. And it's been fun looking at these Victoria hand decks start to see a little bit more play. Of course, you're still running the Fenris Wolf Negasonic Gladiator combination. And I think part of this is like, so we were short on sample size, and I think that like people are still figuring out like how the meta has been impacted by the most recent OTA, and so they're still going to some decks where Fenris was a contributing role, but perhaps not like the linchpin card, like a very good card nonetheless. Now, this is an example where you do have Fenris Wolf and Negasonic together, and part of the reason why Fenris Wolf was moved to a 3 cost was to prevent a 2-drop Fenris Wolf, a 3-drop Negasonic. And it actually makes perfect sense because Negasonic still works well here because of the likes of Iron Patriot, where you can kind of, bait a play into the Iron Patriot, trade that location effectively with a Negasonic, or perhaps you play the Gladiator to get that power up, trade a card to then bring back with the Fenris Wolf. So long story short, Misery as a 4/9 is probably quietly one of the better cards in Marvel Snap right now. And it's taken a little while to cook with Misery, but we're really starting to see it pay dividends, and decks like this are a perfect example. Going into our top 3, Cerebro 2, absolutely phenomenal statistics, 58%, 0.59 cube rate. There's a couple major winners here. First of all, Goose is in the meta now because Goose is going to provide you with some protection against not only the Enchantress, but the Cosmic Ghost Rider, who's now an applicable option if you're looking to do some disruptive gameplay, right? Some of the key winners here, honestly, like I love Shadow King. Like I can't tell you how much I love Shadow King. He's a cube stealer, honestly, especially if you're in the lower MMR brackets. He's an absolute cube stealer. The location control provided by something like a Storm is excellent. Lasher, phenomenal. Takes that ongoing applied power, punches it down. Lasher feels like the cannonball of Cerebro, where like you just win that lane, right? Because you do so much unbelievable power down. And then you're able to follow that up with Brood or whatever, right? So anyways, I really do like what this deck is capable of. And it doesn't surprise me that Cerebro is doing as much as it is. And I understand that it's like annoying to play because like locations scam you nonstop. And well, Storm can only help sometimes, right? It's not going to help Monster Island, and it's not going to help games where you have multiple locations that completely scam you, right? But overall, as a straight-up points deck, if everything's just kind of even Steven, Cerebro 2 puts up insane power right now. It's a legitimate points deck in Marvel Snap. And that's going to take us to one of the cringier decks, but it's still doing good. 59% win rate, 0.41 cube rate. It is the end of turn decks. Now, obviously, the Fantastic card did get nerfed significantly, but these decks are still performing well. This version of the deck is not running Prodigy. Instead, it's actually running the 4/5 Juggernaut. These statistics are from the most recent OTA, but it looks like Juggernaut has not been negatively impacted there. This is running Stardust as well, Havoc, Athena, and the rest. You know this deck, right? I do find it fascinating that according to Untapped-based statistics, that the non-Prodigy version is actually running the higher win rate and cube rate right now, which is kind of interesting to see, despite the fact that Fantasticar recently got nerfed. And that's going to take us to the number 1 deck of the week. And as always, hit that like button if you haven't already. It's Tech Wiccan. Now, it was only a matter of time before the Silver Surfer First Steps was basically buffed and then slid into a deck that performed fantastic. And that's exactly what you see here. This deck is incredible. It's running a 60% win rate and a 0.43 cube rate. You will see some higher cube rates, but what you really want to pay attention to is the fact that, yes, Quicksilver and Domino. Yes, that's right, Quicksilver and Domino. And with Domino's power being 4 now, if you follow that up with the Silver Surfer First Steps, and then you play Wiccan there, you are getting 4 extra energy on that. It's insane. You snap on it, your opponent sees the double proc, Wiccan, Silver Surfer First Steps, and they're like, I'm out. Like, I'm just out. Like, it's too much, right? Allowing you to do some sneaky stuff with the Goliath, with the Cosmic Ghost Rider, of course, G-Man himself. Copycat can become so many different things, especially with the popularity of Negative if you're ranking up, right? So anyways, this deck is phenomenal, and it unironically plays speed. You're almost certainly getting curved considering you have Quicksilver, Domino, and then you have 5 3-drops. Like, you're gonna pull one of the 3-drops, right? For the most part. Of course, there's gonna be statistical times you don't, but long story short, you have a lot of opportunities to have a really high impact on the board state with this particular deck. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm excited for the new season of Marvel Snap, so stay tuned for the breakdown tomorrow. It'll be on Cozy's channel tomorrow for the Snapchat, and catch me on Tuesday for the new card releases and everything like that. We've got a lot of videos coming next week as well. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on that next one.